Good morning, everyone. I am so excited to be here today. We have we have a great topic this morning, a little on the somber side, but also thought-provoking. As you know, this is Monday, and it's September 11th, better known as 9/11. It's become quite famous throughout the world. And we're going to kind of talk a little bit about what do you remember? Where were you? And how has it changed people's lives? For our generation, mine and Barbara's, it's like our Pearl Harbor, so to speak. Our parents, Pearl Harbor changed their lives forever. The lack of safety, we heard about it, but it didn't really impact like it did them. We had the repercussions of it growing up, but it didn't impact us like that. And so we're going to talk about, maybe Pearl Harbor, but mostly 9/11, how it impacted you, and what did people do? How did they react? So I'm Carol Henderson, and I have Life by Design, helping you design your life to spiral up and not down. And so that's one of the reasons we're going to talk about this today. And I'm here with my wonderful co-host, Miss BarbaraEllison. So Barbara, tell us a little bit about you.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Monday Motivations. 9/11 motivated a lot of people. Okay, well, I'm Barbara Ellison, transformational life trainer. And I'm on a mission to make happiness the norm rather than the exception. And one of the things that I can remember 9/11, I can tell you where. I was here at home, and my husband called and said, "Barb, go turn on the TV." And that moment of, oh, yikes, what is the world coming to? What is happening? And so that was so tragic. And then to see the second airplane hit, hearing about the other airline, the other plane that crashed, but then hearing the stories that came out of it, of the people that were on the plane that stopped it. And even though it crashed, but they rebelled against it. And to hear all of those stories, and then after a while going, I can't listen to this anymore. All of those stages because it's shock, and then to tell the truth, morbid curiosity. Ooh, what? It was just curiosity. Ooh, yike, what's going to happen next? Those kinds of things. And yet then it was like all those people, and seeing the firefighters, and knowing so many people just
Barbara, can you hear me? I've lost all your sound. Your mouth is moving, but I'm not hearing you at all.
I'm sorry, I must have hit my mute button.
Oh,
can you
okay.
hear me now?
That's fine. Yes, you're talking about all the people lost their lives, and it's like, oh,
other people lost their lives, and just the bravery of the firemen. But then after the fact, I think one of the biggest things, they talked about, that these towers came down. But I think one of the biggest things for me that I realized afterwards was, look at how, you and I are women of faith, and how could God let this happen? But then on the other hand of that was, look how long those buildings stood. Yes, they came down, but look how long they stood, of how many people were saved, were able to get out. And then, of course, afterwards, hearing all the stories of, where were you when it happened? Or what had delayed you from going to work?
well,
Or
that's the whole
Yeah.
thing. I had friends, because at the time I still had my agency, my model and talent agency, open and running. And So I had lots of friends in New York. I had actually
Right.
been in the towers on the top floor with models being scouted and things like
Yeah.
that previous to that. And, it was like, what's going on? Are you okay? Are you safe? And checking in with
Right.
them. And so many people either were late, they had missed their train. They
Yeah.
were, in fact, one of my friends, David Van Doe, who has a magazine that all the agencies work with, um, wonderful guy. He would have been underneath the towers at the moment of collapse had he
Yeah.
not missed his train. And so
Yeah.
many people, there were so many stories. For
Right.
me, I was getting ready to go to my office. We were living here at the lake, but at the time I still officed in Amarillo. And, we were getting ready. My oldest son called and said, Mom, turn on the TV. A plane just hit the trade towers. And I'm like, what? We turned
Yeah.
it on. And so we're like, oh my goodness. And I looked at Keith. I said, that wasn't an accident.
No.
Those
Oh, no.
don't
Those
happen.
things don't happen.
And so we saw the second one fall. And the
Yeah.
other thing is, people don't. Most people in the world do not realize that 3 towers went down that day, not just 2, but
Mm.
Building 7 went down several hours later.
Yeah.
And they're still calling for research on the whys and wherefores and stuff. But
Mhm.
it's tragic. And and how many of you, in fact, put it in the chat, where were you when the towers fell?
Yeah.
It's just like, I can remember sitting in class in elementary school when John F. Kennedy was shot
Yes.
and stuff, and they came on the PA system and announced it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm in there in elementary school, and for days sitting in front of the TV with my parents. They let
Right.
us out. They did all this other. Well, for me at the towers, I had to just, at the time, I had offices in Amarillo, Midland, Odessa, Fort Worth, Dallas, and Corpus Christi. So all those cities across Texas. And that may not sound like a lot, but it's a 11 or 12-hour drive from Amarillo to Corpus. Okay. So, and that's at 70 miles an hour. So it's not dawdling at 35. So it was a wide space. And I had been in Dallas and
No.
Fort Worth. Well, actually, I was in the Fort Worth group the week before the towers fell. I believe, wasn't it on a Tuesday that it fell?
Mm.
I'm,
I think I want to say that. I think so.
I'm pretty sure it was. And that weekend, I had been in Fort Worth scouting models for an event. And so we had a very large turnout, a very large group of models. And it was like, oh, is everything okay? Well, Dallas Fort Worth is the hub, the main hub for American Airlines. So that totally affected my business because over the next week, one of my parents was the grief counselor that had to deal with every single person and family that went down on airlines.
Yeah. Okay, your volume is down.
Oh, sorry. I probably need to talk a little louder. Is that
Yeah.
better?
Yeah,
Anyway,
that's better.
she was the grief counselor for all the American Airlines clients. And
Yeah.
that was incredibly difficult. Those people were working 7 days a week,
Right.
14, 16, 18 hours a day, trying to do everything they needed to do. And so, they were having to pull their kids out of the event that they had planned. And so that definitely affected. And so about a week later, we were down working with all these kids in both Dallas and in Fort Worth. And my husband picked me up partway, and we went to Corpus and in the motorhome, and I literally slept. I slept all the way he woke me up and made me go in and eat one time. But I was so myself spent, not even being
Right. Yeah.
but just in dealing with the families that were with American and with all
Right.
going on. And I
And
was,
all the people that were stranded, all
yes,
the people, because everything was shut down.
yes,
Everything
exactly.
was
So
shut
I was
down.
one of the first flights out after the deal. I was in Corpus and I flew home, but I had a model in Italy, and her mother worked for America West.
Mm.
America West, yeah, it's a subsidiary of American, and her daughter is in Italy, and I had another girl that was a little older that was in Italy, and they were working, and mom was calling, going, "I want her home, and I don't have any way to get her here." I said,
Right.
"She's safer there than here."
Right. Then here.
Nobody's mad at the Italians; they're mad
Right.
at the Americans. So, kind of settle down, talk to her on the phone. But yeah,
Right.
it shut the country down for 2 weeks.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
2 weeks. It shut the country down mentally for
Oh,
you.
for years, years. And that's one of the things for me too, is that all the stories of people that we heard that were able to, survive, and that were able to recover, and the people of the injuries and stuff. But then I have to admit, there were a couple of thoughts of like, I wonder how many people walked away from their lives because of it.
Right.
And I truly believe that that's true in any confrontation, whether it's a war or a disaster or,
How many guys
whatever.
come back from Vietnam and then they find out years later they went native. They just
They
decided.
went native. Exactly. And we all have, so which brings us to a bit about our show, is that it's all about choice.
Yeah.
And how you responded to the choice. The people that were making themselves crazy because they were running late, and they were so mad at themselves because they were late. They missed their train. They broke their heel. One lady, she got up and she said, "I broke my heel. And I was so mad that I had walked in a grate. I knew the grate was there, and I was so mad at myself." And then heard that the tower had gone down. All of those things. It's how we respond. And then afterwards, for me, I just prayed for them to stay standing, which they did. They stood for so long after all of this happened. And yet I truly believe that things are going to be coming out still for years to come of what actually happened. How did this happen? How did these planes get through the security of our air security? All those questions. And I don't want, I mean, it's the conspiracy theorist in me.
Yeah, and I will say they're opening up
Some
again
of the files.
the files to look at it, because
Yeah.
those buildings had special stuff in them to withstand anything like that.
Yeah.
And they say the jet fuel caught fire and burned all the metal. Jet fuel doesn't burn metal.
Metal. Yeah.
Jet fuel, just if you don't know, is kerosene,
Yeah.
basically. I mean,
Right.
the kerosene, it doesn't burn.
Smells bad.
Yeah,
No.
but it doesn't burn that hot. So,
Yes.
if anybody really wants to get into a deep dive, put a thing in the chat and I'll send you a link that
Yeah.
a thing I just watched recently where they are looking at
Yeah.
some of the stuff.
Yeah. And I can remember my dad worked for an airline and for 40 years. And he did the fuel he was the fuel that did the fuel. He inspected the fuel. And we would come home and it would be like, and he would have to strip off off the back porch, and before he could even remotely come in the house because of the jet fuel. I mean, it gets everywhere. So all of those things, how did,
So I have a
it
question.
still boggles your mind.
I have a question for you. He was still
Sure.
alive when the towers fell. What were his thoughts when they said the jet fuel brought it down?
Oh,
His personal thoughts.
Yeah. Uh, I know we talked about it. We talked about so many things with my dad. And some of the funny things that he talked about has an airline and has a high mucky muck in the airline. Um, but sometimes he wouldn't talk about things. But fuel was one of the things that he would talk about. And he would just the same observations that you said. What? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
One of those things.
Well, my dad was a pilot, so yeah,
Yeah, exactly. They have little behind the scenes, like he would come home and he would sometimes tell us the funny things. Like, how does an airplane hit a terminal? Yeah, well, guess what they do? And the people just don't hear about that. Or
well,
one time he came
even
home
a
and one
little
of the
bit,
planes,
just a
yeah,
slight touch of an
ju-
airplane wing, a touch will
ju-
ground that plane
well,
because even if it's hardly
yeah,
even a discernible nick,
yeah,
it needs to be checked because
it
it
needs to be
can
checked.
affect the dynamics of the plane.
Right. Right. Yeah. And one time he came home and one, I'm not going to mention the airline, but they had slipped off. They had gotten like pilot error. And it was a sort of pilot error, but once in a while things happen because of wind shear, the wind shears that would come across. And if it just hit you the wrong way, I mean, the plane, it would shift just slightly. And it was, like most people don't realize that a runway has like a long lead that comes up here at an angle and then goes across and then goes down the other side. And it's a long slopey kind of thing. And it just got too close to the edge and the airplane just kind of slid off the side down because of a wind shear.
Well, and we've
And
had
nobody
been hearing it
nobody was hurt, you
because
know,
of ice.
or ice.
Yeah,
Exactly.
because
Those things
we
happen.
get so much ice, and we've literally
Yeah.
had planes slide off the runway here because
Slide off the runway. And I remember from personal experience, one time I was flying out to, I believe, New York. And this is like years and years ago. But you know how you talk to your seatmate.
Mhm.
Well, we were just, this man beside me, heaven knows who he was, just sat there. We were just chit-chatting and just having a great time. It was a flight, and we were talking. There was a couple started in the conversation. Well, it turned out that he worked for one of the other airlines and did maintenance. But it was like, oh, I said, oh, yeah. So we had a great talk about airlines and all that kind of stuff and experiences. Well, as we were landing in New York, I looked at him, he looked at me and said, whoa, he landed really long. So you could feel that he was running out of runway.
Yeah, yeah. Or when they
Having the
come in and
brakes
they
on, and
bounce.
you
Yeah,
and
you're like,
the
oh.
bounce, and he was running out of running out of runway. And just this man and I looked at each other, and yeah, and we both knew it because we were both airline, and like I can remember what I'm going to tell. I grew up half a mile from the end of the international runway in Montreal, and we were between the two flight paths. So we airplane watched sitting on our back porch, and they were low. I mean, they were either taking off or they were coming in, and they were low. And
And
I mean,
that's so
I have
fun. If
pictures
y'all have
that they're
never
just above
experienced
the,
that, if you'd never go do it, because
yeah,
my grandfather and I used to go out to Hobby Airport
yeah,
in Houston, and that was back when the planes would turn and the
yeah.
blast would hit you
Oh,
on
yeah,
the runway. I mean, open, you could go, it was
yeah,
pre 9/11. I'm really not that old, but
yeah,
anyway, it was pre 9
yeah,
11. And, things weren't so locked down and you could go enjoy. Or Keith and I
yeah,
would sit at the end of the little private runway here in town
yeah,
and watch them take off. But
right.
one of the best things is what Barbara was saying about when you're right in the flight path. And in Dallas, I think it's White Rock Lake is the name of the lake. I may be wrong, but it's a lake right by Love Field. It's a park.
Yeah.
It's a big park. And we would go, and when we lived down there, and just lay and watch the planes come
And
in.
watch the planes.
And
Now, where my sister lives in Montreal, on the island of Montreal, right by the airport, in the path of the flight, in the flight path. I mean, we lived in the flight path. Anyways, and we would sit at her house right on the lake and and there would be probably, you would see them all lined up. So, we would watch at night. We go down, sit at the lake and watch, and you would see the line of airplanes coming in. And how did they all,
Yeah.
it was like they were, and then they were, and then you was like, oh, plane. You can't talk, you can't do anything because it's that low. And if you're on the phone, airplane, oh, okay, now I can hear you again. And it was always a part of every conversation because where we lived, they were coming in like every 10 minutes. And so there were just certain times of the day that you knew, do not call anybody because you are going to be interrupted by the airplanes. And
But
airlines, I'll tell you one little secret of airlines. Airlines tend to hire in families. If they get one really good worker, they will tend to hire other family members. So my family, we were an airline family. My cousin, my sister, my uncle, my dad,
yeah. Well,
So,
and the thing is, let's stop and think the miracle of flying.
oh, of flying.
And back in the 40s and 50s, they really thought that every family would have their own plane.
Yeah,
I mean, at the end of the war, they thought that every family would. And, when you look at the difference in the incomes back then, I saw a
right.
whole video on that recently that was very eye-opening. Back in the 50s, a family, one income, dad worked, mom stayed home.
Right.
And he brought home the equivalent of over 80,000
Yeah.
days dollars.
Right. Right.
I mean, so I can see why people would, why they would have thought of that. But my dad did have a plane.
Right.
And my dad was big on big boy toys. So
Right.
anyway, motorcycles, lake houses, boats, and planes. But that was a common thing back then.
Right.
And it wasn't, I mean, now it's like the planes seem to be reserved for the more elite or the regular people that have planes, ride share, so to speak. Their planes. And
right.
And so it is amazing that we fly.
Right.
It's amazing that we don't get out. How many of y'all got on the top of the barn and tried to fly?
Right. Yes. Oh, yeah. I can remember jumping off the garage roof thinking we could fly. But and with my dad, we used to sit on the back porch, and of course we would have names for the airplanes and all that kind of thing. And one of the things that he would sit there and say, okay, and we were all girls, I'm one of 4 girls. And it was like, okay, what kind of an airplane is that? And we had to know the difference between a Lockheed L-1011 and a DC-10 and all of those things. And that, that one has a Pratt & Whitney engine. And we just, you're muted. And I mean, that was the things that we did.
Yeah.
And
well, here we were a military base. So you add those in and you add your military aircraft. Yeah. We were a SAC Air Force Base when I was growing up. It's the Strategic
Air Command.
And so our runways here have been built. The shuttle lands in Amarillo if there's any kind of a problem mid-continent. Well, and even if there's not a problem, they land the shuttle here occasionally on the plane. But the shuttle itself can land here if needed. And actually, it's smaller than you would think. You see it on the back of the plane, and it's like, oh, that isn't that.
Right. So, but just the fun things. But anyway, so just we wanted to make this somber, knowing that it was 9/11, but we also wanted to share some memories, share some chuckles, and share some things of.
I really want people to put in the chat, where were you?
Where were you?
The planes in the towers. Where were you? I mean, that was.
What were you doing? What was your first thought? So, yes, but anyways, so this has been a great conversation, Carol. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I texted her this morning. She said, what are we going to talk about in the morning last night when we spoke? And I said, I don't know. And this morning,
because we really do try to do some pre-show, like know what we're going to talk about. And so last night it was like, that's like,
because we hadn't gotten a chance to talk about it ahead of time. Things have been kind of busy for both of us.
We have, yes.
And
I've been in my branding class. It has been
we have some
absolutely
changes coming up
amazing.
to our shows that are going to be exciting.
Yeah.
And we're nowhere near ready to, we're just at the first thought on those things. So, but please put in the chat, where were you on 9/11? And you don't even have to explain what 9/11 is. You just ask somebody, where were you at 9/11?
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah.
and what startles me is that all those children that had parents in the towers are now adults.
Right.
It's like, oh my goodness, that was what year was it? Was it 2001 or 2?
Gee, and now I'm blank.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I am too.
Let's look.
Trying to think.
Well, let's just let's ask our
Just
friend
Google it.
Google.
Okay. While you're Googling it, I'm going to say, if you're watching on Facebook, please click like and share. Please share it out to your friends, because we love doing these shows and we hope we're bringing value to you. If you're on YouTube,
22 years ago.
okay, if you're on YouTube, please hit the thumbs up, because that helps the algorithms. Click the subscribe button and the little bell so that it'll announce that we have something coming up. So 22 years ago, so 2001. That's where I was thinking that.
I thought it was.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Well, cool.
anyways, everybody have an awesome week. Have a great day. This is September. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about is, are you getting ready for the fourth quarter? What are you going to be doing? Because we're going to be coming up to.
Yeah. If you sit on the sofa eating bonbons and watching soap operas, you probably don't think much about the fourth quarter.
Yeah. But if you're a business, or if you want help with something, let us know. We love to talk to people about what they're doing, whether it's in their mindset or they're in something that they're struggling with. Social media, it is all good. It's fun.
If you want an inspirational card sent to your home,
Yes.
your mailing address, we aren't going to come stalk you at your home. But
Nope.
and this is worldwide, we do have people that watch in other countries. So it doesn't matter where in the world you are. If you would like an inspirational quote from us in the mail, tangible, okay.
Yep.
If you want something like that, let us know and we will send it to you. We just need your mailing address, whether it's the US, Canada, international, around
Yep.
the world. Send us that information and we will send that. If you want an inspiration around a particular topic, let us know that too, because we can specialize it, or we can just pray about it and send you what we think sounds good.
Yeah. And one thing too, right now, with we've adopted this, sending people cards. Well, the company is having is a 10-card challenge. Come and join us in sending cards.
Yes.
Oh, it's going to be so fun.
Cards for just $20. That's $2 a card. I looked up postage because I was going to send something to my grandkids that a handwritten. One of my grandkids is learning the difference between cursive and print, and so my husband wrote him a letter with both, one word under the other, and so we're sending that. It's over 60 cents to send a letter. I mean, letter, and so this $2 a card is your printing, your postage, anywhere, even across the pond. Or whatever they call the Atlantic as opposed to the pond.
Yes. Yeah. So join us in our 10-card challenge.
Yeah.
Have fun with it.
Yeah, just you can go to cardsfromcarol.com, or you can go to cardsfrombarbara.com. It all goes to the same account because we're just the Mavens of Motivation.
They should. So anyways, have a great week.
Yes.
We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.